Welcome to Cast of Creators. We're your hosts. I'm Nelson Thal.
And I'm Casey Stewart. We've spent our careers in media and publishing, and now we're setting the stage for creative people who inspire us to share their stories.
Our guest this episode is the one and only Raine Maida from Our Lady Peace. We sat down with Raine to close out the 2022 Collision Conference here in Toronto. It was a road trip for Cast of Creators.
Yeah, we went on an adventure. We talked about NFTs, Web3, and about how his Drops app helps artists like Our Lady Peace connect directly with their fans.
Let's go.
Woo!
Raine, thank you so much for joining us on Cast of Creators, closing out Collision here.
Crazy.
This is the headline event, and just a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Yeah, great talk this morning. Lots of insightful stuff, Web3, NFTs. It was really good.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, they always are.
Yeah.
So this Web3 technology and blockchain, this must be satisfying a grievance that's been in you for about 20 plus years, that you've consciously recognized that you were desiring for something that gave you more control, something that gave you the ability to bring that relationship with the audience closer to you. So talk to me as you started to learn about Web3 and NFTs, you know, how that clicked and what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to ownership. And if you look at the internet today, and we've been through, you know, I made my first record in Navid on 2-inch tape.
Right.
So completely analog.
Amazing.
And then I've always been a fan of technology as it's helped musicians, you know, to where you can make a record in your basement today or on an airplane, you know, like that's how far advanced the technology of recording music and audio has gone. But then somewhere around, I don't know, can't remember the date, but Napster's born. Sean Fanning basically putting his hand in my pocket and stealing my money. Not stealing it, but like this is where technology is. Every time new technology comes, there's a downside. And so the downside to streaming and DSPs is the fact that, yeah, it's great. I use it. I love that I can have 1 million songs on my phone, but the royal or the artist payouts are not good. And so that hurts the arts in general.
Yeah, interesting that it was a form of decentralization with Napster that really empowered the listener, but tremendously detrimental to the creator.
Yes.
And
became consolidated really quickly.
Right.
And this is why we have 4 or 5 companies that basically run Web2, you know, and own it. So I think this next paradigm shift that I'm hopefully lucky to live through is where the artists and the creators get ownership back and actually not just get it back themselves, but are able to share it and have their audiences participate. That's a whole new concept.
Absolutely. Well, the interesting thing about Napster is it decentralizes the digital file, but it doesn't really turn it into a digital asset.
Right.
So what ends up happening is you just copy it and it just waters down the whole thing. So it's not unique in any kind.
Right.
But then NFTs come along and they empower a whole new layer of really unique asset capability to these digital assets.
Yep. Yeah, which is really exciting. And look, I think we've seen the explosion and the frenzy around PFPs. I think, you know, they've in a weird way set back Web3 space because it's completely speculative. And even what I said on stage today was like, if you're going to buy into an NFT community that isn't Bored Ape or World of Women or Moonbirds or the top 10, you might as well go to a casino.
Right.
You know, you are literally gambling. And I don't think that was out there enough in this frenzy. And, you know, a lot of people are going to lose money and are losing money. And now it's putting a negative kind of slant on Web3, which it shouldn't, because it's one small component of it. And I would say that for the most part, for the next little while, like music fans aren't, and not to contradict what you're saying, also, but music fans aren't interested in buying an asset to resell it.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's not speculative.
It's more like a collectible.
It's a collectible.
Yeah.
Like I don't buy, you know, some cool Arcade Fire vinyl to go make a profit of it.
Yeah,
I want to
keep
own
that
it.
in your collection.
It's about
a piece of art for you.
Yeah. So my company Drops with 2 R's is all about fandom. It's all about proof of fandom. You know, we talk about proof of stake and all these different proofs. It's proof of fandom, and within that, It's not about trying to profit off your favorite artists. It's just about supporting them. And we've seen this in real life traditional models. Bandcamp is one of those. You know, Bandcamp's a great platform, and whether you're buying merch or vinyl from your favorite artists, they did Bandcamp Fridays over COVID. Those were huge because 100% of the revenue went to the artist. Fans saw this. They're like, I'm in.
Yeah.
So that just proves that relationship between a fan and an artist hasn't gone away. They've just lost the ability to support that band besides buying a ticket at this point.
Right. And, you know, that NFT is fundamentally a contract.
Yep.
It can represent many different things. And initially, yes, it can represent that I'm the owner of this, you know, glorified digital patch or T-shirt.
Sure.
But what additional elements, you know, are you thinking of adding to that contract
Yeah.
that allow a fan to do more?
That's a great question. So, an NFT, in my opinion, is only as good as a utility that's built on top of it.
Absolutely.
Right? So, what we're doing right now on the OLP tour is basically fans just for checking into drops. So we used, my co-founder is a guy named Mitch Butler who built a company called Mapped-In out of Kitchener-Waterloo, one of the leading global geo mapping companies. They do Major League Baseball, every mall in America, most malls in Canada, I think. But anyway, so we use custom geo, which is part of his expertise, and Web3 to know and understand who's coming to an OLP show. I at this point in my career, anyone that buys a ticket to one of my shows, you're a super fan.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And does Ticketmaster, does it another entity still control that relationship? Who's controlling that relationship?
In terms of like purchasing a ticket.
Purchasing.
Yeah, we're not getting into the ticketing space. That's
That's
But
a
if
whole nother-
if I buy a ticket to your show, then at what point do you then intercept me and start to try and build a direct relationship with me?
as soon as you enter that venue. So that's the geo part of it. So
Right.
we know you're there. We know you have a ticket. Again, that's like my verification. You get a proof of attendance. Not protocol right now because we're not keeping that on the block because it's scaring fans. So it's a proof. It's a POAP, but a proof of attendance pass.
Okay.
So it's a digital collectible that we're giving right now with the OLP tour. It's a playbill. It's a really sick, slick digital asset that spins. It has like all the songs we're playing, so a set list, all the people involved in the tour.
So cool.
It's really sick. It's kind of this theater show, so it's actually a playbill. But you get that for free. And then there's a different tier. There's a tier where you can buy what's called a Wonderful Future Tour Pass. It's $10. It gets you like immediately very tangible, like stuff that a fan can connect with. 15% discount at the merch booth.
Yeah.
Right away. Simple. We're
Yeah,
not
why wouldn't you do
reinventing the
that?
wheel.
'Cause
Right.
You're already a
Yeah.
super fan. You
Yeah.
want to get the merch.
Exactly. You get pushed, notifications, really exclusive. Like we did a backstage, Steve and I, a guitar player, did a song for Drops fans and our community a couple days ago in Ottawa, not on socials. We'll never be on Instagram. This is like specifically for this new community. And then we're donating anyone that buys that fan pass, it goes to Unite Ukraine. So you get a digital Unite with Ukraine OLP, like this really cool poster. And then you get a physical one you can grab on the way out as well. This is like the tip of the iceberg stuff.
Yes.
So every day, the best thing about this space as an artist, it's allowed me to start thinking digitally. None of the things that I just described take any bandwidth from me, really.
Right.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
That's important for an artist.
Absolutely.
It's not that I'm not a fan of Patreon or things like Top Fan, but we've studied these platforms. I live it. I know artists that are on it. It's a necessary means for artists that don't make money streaming, maybe don't even make a lot of money touring. It's like Patreon is the way they survive.
Mhm.
But it's not like the subscription model works for us and Netflix and other things. It doesn't work for artists.
Right.
I can't be held to like a schedule of someone's paying $10 a month to be on my Patreon and now I got to deliver this stuff every month.
Yeah, you have to
Right.
do more work.
I feel guilt. I don't want to
Yeah.
do it. I don't know. It's not the way I think.
Yeah. You didn't pursue your career to be a taskmaster to have a taskmaster.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that. And so a lot of this is really now business models that have worked in the physical world for years can now tiptoe into the digital world.
Yes.
because now you have a digital asset that you ultimately can sell.
Yep.
And you also really have another form of ticket to admission as it relates to additional content and additional, sneak peeks of things and offering perks and rewards, like a rewards program.
For sure.
And I like how you're really analyzing what works.
Yeah.
And taking what works into Web3 and into the NFT space and a digitized asset space. I think that's really clever versus going way out and trying to figure out something that doesn't really necessarily work and trying to make it work for you. That's great.
Yeah, and I think blockchain at this point in time actually does that. Like it actually puts up all these barriers and friction points. I know for a fact, because we've done our testing, 98% of my fans at a show do not have a MetaMask wallet.
Right.
So if I were to go full into Web3 and blockchain, and that's the only way it's like, we're out. We just lost.
Right.
That's not, I said it on stage, like I consider drops at this point, it's like Web 2.5.
Yes.
And that's the right thing to do, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Because I've watched somebody get a MetaMask and set up a wallet.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Well, first of all, you can't do it live. You need a Chrome browser to do it. That's not happening on your phone. So right there, done.
Right. And you touched on in the talk the benefits of centralization and the benefits of decentralization. And I think that, looking at Web3 as this progressively decentralized trajectory that these products are on is definitely the smart way to do it.
Yeah.
And, an analogy I gave Casey after the talk is like, imagine if you took 1,000 people and asked them to decide on a menu for a restaurant. You know what that menu would look like? Okay. Menu would be a disaster. All right. You'd have French onion soup. You'd have sushi. You'd have,
burger.
The menu would be horrible. And that's the thing. Like, you've got to have some fundamental entity there establishing a goal.
And it would have no brand. What kind of brand would it be? It'd be a complete disaster.
Yeah. And look, the biggest thing for me, especially in the music space, we're talking about fans, is trust.
Yes.
Right. And I feel like if you lose that, I'm not sure you get it back.
Right.
So you have to be really thoughtful, really careful. And I get what's happening on some of the other sides and the PFP stuff. I just can't afford to take that risk with my fan base.
No, definitely not. And, one of the best things about blockchain is it's trustless. So you're stepping into an area where that group doesn't have to really trust you that much. That's the joke, to know that they're getting something. But meanwhile, if your brand is, ultimately, it's about how capable can a brand or an entity rally community around them. And if you can't do that, it doesn't matter what Web3 you got. It doesn't matter what reward necessarily you got. It's going to be a tough go.
Yep.
So I think that's exciting. Now, walk me through just a bit of the history of your career a little bit. So you started an analog, okay? And then you're dealing at that stage with a record label, right? Like, walk me through how that's changed, right? Because you went from having very little direct distribution personally to now having the ability to amplify your voice direct. So when did that sort of come to consciousness as you saw tech was evolving?
I've always been a fan, even though if I didn't understand why I enjoyed it. But so we did our record Naveed on analog. And then we were one of the, not leaders, but we were, I think Daniel Lanois started using this technology called Radar, which was the first, digital recording device. Little clunky. Editing on it was really difficult, like nothing streamlined, nothing easy, but again, you were able to record as opposed to tape where it's expensive and it just becomes a nightmare. So we enjoyed that for 2 records, and then Pro Tools came in, and all of a sudden editing and all that stuff gets much easier.
Right. It's interesting, actually, just to skip back. There's all of a sudden no cost to hit record.
That's it.
Like, that's something that you don't necessarily think of consciously when you leave analog. Now, all of a sudden, you're not thinking, oh, we're paying for that tape, or I'm going to have to re-record on that, and we're degrading the thing by sitting here, That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's just, obviously, this stuff is exponential, and it's just gotten so much easier and so much better and efficient and all those great things. That space to me is actually democratized, because now it's like anyone can record a record if they want, pretty much. There are no barriers to entry for a 16-year-old kid. Like, if you want to, you can go get a free version of Logic with your MacBook or your iPad, and you can do it.
Right.
Like, if you really have the will,
It's
the technology.
Take a look at, like, what TikTok has done for, how many artists have become famous because they made something that was trending on TikTok. And like, you look at Lil Nas X, like, he's killing it. And that all started there.
Yeah. So it's, but I think with every emerging and new technology, there's a downside. And so the downside of that is that, man, is it noisy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's more difficult to break as an artist. And it's you're just fighting for views, and you're fighting for attention. And it's, with that technology that was emerging, gaming like blew up. I have a cousin that was like, one of the biggest in the space, like managed Ninja, and had a huge gaming company that he sold for millions of dollars, and just a genius. And I was watching that happen. I'm like, holy shit, this is where a lot of people's attention are, and so Netflix, like, it is an artist, like a musician has a much more difficult path to make it than what I did when we first started.
Right.
It's interesting.
It's funny. Sometimes I think about, a father 15 years ago walking downstairs into the basement, looking at what his kids are doing, playing N64, smoking weed, and watching movies. And, that father would be pretty disparaging to all those activities, right? Fast forward.
Give it to me.
Fast forward. That's like exactly where you wanted to put your money. Exactly where some of the biggest and the most money has been in gaming. If you just studied the kids and watched the kids, you'd be in gaming, you'd be in weed, and you'd be, in streaming.
100%.
Which is hilarious. The dad's walking down there going,
thinking they're so smart.
Thinking they're so smart.
Meanwhile, if only they could see the future.
So, we see that happening with every wave. But
that's fascinating.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks
Pleasure
for having me.
you.
Yeah,
cool
amazing
to meet you.
Be here. This is amazing. It's. I mean, I'm sure everyone can hear the energy around here. It feels like we're back.
Yeah, it really does. I was saying yesterday, I was like, I feel almost like I'm like vibrating. I feel electric. Like, it's not like the old times. It's a new times, but it's like, it's exciting.
It really is.
The mass count is low in here. I haven't seen a mass.
Low.
Really low. A lot lower than I.
One. Maybe a couple.
There's a couple.
But a lot lower than I thought potentially what it was going to be.
Yeah, it's definitely back.
Pretty cool to see. Had you been to one of these before COVID? This is my first collision.
No, this is my first collision.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been before. Yes.
Oh.
I'm glad to have collided with all of you here.
Yeah.
It's a great conference. I think been pretty well organized. I've enjoyed the food. I'm seeing people again. It's been awesome.
I think this is world class. I think it'll just continue to grow. I think the organizers do a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I agree.
The location is good, and I think the mix of tech here is like, you can't help but feel inspired.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This is what we need this right now.
Yep.
So it's really great. Well, thanks for chatting with us today.
Thank you, guys.
Cool.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. You can follow Raine on Instagram at Raine Maida and check out his Drops app at drops.com. That's Drops with 2 R's.
You can watch more episodes of Cast of Creators on YouTube, listen on your favorite podcast platform, or visit castofcreators.com. We're back next week with host, creator, and official Raptors guy, Devo D Live. Make sure you like and subscribe.